welcome to the stream. Drop in some questions if you've got any. I'm going to be here for about an hour, so if you want any questions answered, get them in quickly and let's see what we can do. Hello, Alex. What time did I say I was going to start? Hey Lee, I've been learning that tune, so tomorrow should be able to do something, and then on Sunday I'll be able to do something hopefully better. Hey Joel, hey Jim, how's work going? Hey Jake, by the way. It's not too late, it's never too late to start playing guitar. And if you're practicing every day, then things should happen quite quickly. So Jim is actually a consultant at a hospital, so he's really on the front lines doing good stuff for us. Oh, awesome, Lee, that's cool. Am I able to see that? Hi Ujwal, how are you doing? Feel free to jump in if you've got questions that you want to ask me. If you could hit that like button thing as well, that might help us get noticed by some really strange people, or it might be cool people, you never know. So if you could hit that like button if you haven't, that would be cool. Me and Jake were talking about bends, so maybe we could talk about some bend exercises. So Ujwal, in terms of intervals, yes, I do both, I think. So you could do like intervallic phrases like this. My approach to comping with other guitarists. Okay, right, so we've got a couple of topics now. So, right, the most important thing about bending to me is that your target pitch is accurate. So Guthrie Govan's actually got a really good video on this and lesson on this. But what he talks about is first playing so he talks about playing the target note first and bending to it so that you've got like a reference for whether you're in tune. And there's a couple of factors that can affect your bends. One of them is your tremolo, because obviously you're putting quite a lot of pressure on the trem, so depending on your setup, your trem might move with the bend, so that's something to consider. So mine does move. So when I move between playing a trem guitar to like a Les Paul or, you know, a fixed bridge, things do change a little bit. So that's something that differs between guitars. Yeah, Alex, this stream will stay live. So you want to practice half bends essentially, so you know bending, and then also the full. And then obviously there's bends further beyond that, but those aren't ones that I use particularly. So practicing playing like phrases. Try and get them sounding consistent, and maybe try with other fingers as well. No, that didn't work. One thing you could do is try and kind of visualize where your finger's going to need to be to get. So you kind of like visualize where the string will end up, and so those are a few little exercises that I would kind of suggest. And things like sliding into bends I think sounds good. Connor, I would start off this is what I would suggest. So start off with one string set. So for instance, you might want to start off with your lowest string, and play your arpeggios one. So you want 7 arpeggios or triads. So maybe we'll start with triads. What you would do is sort of just play through the tune. Wait, we were not in that. We're in that. So do it like that, shifting things around to start with. Then do that again on other keys, other string sets, sorry. So then move down to the A string. So just do that in first inversion to start with. Not first inversion, root position is what I mean. So you'd start with the root of each chord that you're playing. That sort of thing. Then move down to the other strings. So then you can maybe try doing that up one shape and down the next. Sorry. So do that to start with, and that will take a while to get sort of comfortable with. But then also what you might want to think about is doing that with each of the inversions. So you could start with the first inversion, so like A minor. So what we're doing. So that sort of thing. Go through each of the inversions. And then what you want to think about is trying to put the inversions next to each other, which makes sense. So try and stay around the same area that you started. So you can do that either staying on the same string or moving across strings so that you're not doing massive leaps between stuff. So like this. Then what? What am I trying to do here? So that sort of thing, and then also the next logical thing to do would be to try and add like sevenths to each of the chords. So you could do like this. Went off the boil there. So anyway, where was I? So that was probably a bit faster than I would actually try and practice it, but you get the idea. So you're sort of gradually building up things so that you have a little bit of fluency. Yes, Jens Larsen is getting to the point where I ended, I would suggest. So you definitely worth staying in the 5 frets, but maybe also worth considering learning them all over the neck first, because that is a little bit easier. So like Jen says, what you want to build up to is the ability to keep them together, but I don't know if that's necessarily that reasonable to start with, but I could be entirely wrong. So yeah, like you say, if you want to go down that approach, you could try it. So Ujwa, I've actually done a video specifically on infant eyes, so that might be worth you looking at. But I don't think about particularly writing lines. So in terms of creating lines, I'd just be trying to play within home for each chord. So that video is kind of detailing my approach to that stuff. Not really any of my lines are prepared so much. I would just practice approaches, so that sort of stuff. The other thing to think about, Connor, is maybe you could try mixing up how many notes you play up and down, but that is a little bit complicated. I think I'd find that hard. Then I guess the next level up from that would be to start adding extensions to any of these. So you could, on each dominant, you could sharpen the 5 maybe. So let's see if I can do that. Probably not. Well, what you could do is change the position. So like he says, you could start off, you'd say, right, I'm going to stay within this area of the fretboard, and then practice the same exercise here the next day or something. So you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about not covering the fretboard. I just think it's maybe a lot to think about at the start of it. So yeah, like I said, for each dominant, you could then try sharpening the 5. So that's going to present its own issue. So I'm going to start each of these from root. And another thing you could try doing actually, Connor, is to say each note as you play it. This is super difficult, but it is definitely a good exercise if you can do it. Hi Jason, how you doing? So you could try A, C, E, D, F sharp, G, D, F sharp, A, G, B, D, C, E, G, F sharp, A, C, B, D sharp, F sharp, E, G, B, E, D, E, B. So that's really difficult. Fun exercise though. Hi Thomas, how you doing? Moving the same scale shapes is another thing by itself. Yep. So yeah, initially I think it's worth. So you could try even if you take the first chord of each bit. So if you say you just going to take the A minor, figure out how to play A minor all over the neck. So where else are we? This is embarrassing. Doing that it's a whole another exercise which is worthwhile, and then take the next one, then G, then C, that's a database, right, Jason? Which volume is too low? I can't really tell. There's not a lot I can do, I don't think. I think the volume is relatively high in my room. Right, so any further questions? But autumn leaves is definitely a good one to try that exercise with. Jake has returned. What have you returned? The dude. But those 7 arpeggios are where it starts to sound a little bit. How do you work on combining harmony and melody? Say, for instance, something simple like blues bossa. How do you mean combining harmony and melody? That was there, innit? Okay, Lee, so I can talk about it. The first thing to work on is try to play the melody on some of the top strings. Give me a second. Bending time is over, Jake. So it's one of these things where I think in the first instance these things will happen quite slow. So you might just take that first bit and you figure out what fingers are you using. Sorry, the dog's going to be bark. You figure out which fingers are you using, which fingers are you free to do other stuff with in the first instance, and you might think, okay, there's an opportunity for a spicy chord here, so you might work out something different. But most of the time, I try to keep it really simple so that I can keep the melody kind of... I want it to sound roughly like it's someone just playing the melody, so it doesn't sound like I'm trying to force the melody around what my technique can actually do. I want the melody to be the main thing, and then I'm supporting it with the chords. So where we're at. where are we at then? So that part there. So what should that chord be? It should be, yeah, it should be a D. What are we doing? So I would work out what the melody is. I'd work out what and I play it loads of times so that I can hear it playing in my head. And normally, then the harmony sort of comes along with that, so that I can hear what the chords were roughly doing in the background, so I can get a flavour of what the chord should be. And then I'm just simply, it's like a utility thing where you're trying to work out which fingers are free to do stuff. And the more you do it, the kind of easier it comes. So that's one option. Or here's. Or. Then when. Does that answer any of those questions, Lee? I'm being asked if I'm live. In this process with the tune that you've asked me to work on, so I don't know if I can remember any of it. I can remember this part of it. Something around that. So I can't remember how the very first bit goes. But that's the first process, is to try and memorize the melody, sing it in your head, play the melody enough times where the melody you're not really thinking about playing it. The tune I'm working on is Mercy, 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 which is a Joe Zawinul tune, and Cannonball Adderley plays on that tune a lot. But it's quite a simple kind of gospel-y tune. So normally the tunes that I'm working on may be slightly more complicated than this one, but it's a nice opportunity to kind of try and actually just be musical. Yes, Zazu Zonka, I've got the perfect video for you. I think the vibrato stuff varies from guitarist to guitarist. It's something of a personal thing. So you want to find what sort of vibrato you like and maybe try and emulate the movements of whatever that person's making. Me personally, my vibrato comes from like a twist of the wrist. The fact that you're asking about vibrato and improving it probably shows that you're on the right path, because I think it's sort of an unconscious thing that some players never really think about, and it's something that some players absolutely think about. what you want really is it to be consistent across each finger, and you want to be conscious of whether you're actually returning to the note. So hi Dan. Cannonball Adderley is one of my favourite jazz players. I really think everything about his playing was on point. Stephen, I can't say I noticed any difference in the volume. I liked what was happening. So yeah, you basically want to up or down. It depends on you. I tried to go up for most of my vibrato, but on this finger it goes kind of both ways. Below the D string I'd be going down maybe. So it depends where you are on the neck direction, I think. But just try playing like slow melodies and listen to what your vibrato's doing. Does it sound how you want it to sound? If not, then work on it closer. But I guess being conscious of what you're doing is the main thing, you know. Are you just wobbling a string randomly? Is it consistent time-wise? And then you can also think about adding to bends. Probably be better if I did it in the same key. So yeah, those are little things to think about. I guess it also matters the context of the tune. There's going to be some tunes where if you do a really wild vibrato, it's not going to sound particularly appropriate. So you want to maybe be more controlled. And something else to think about is maybe do you leave like space before you add in some vibrato? You know, do you hold the note and then bring in the vibrato later? Things to think about. Hey Jason, I do have a comparison of the two. I just didn't include it in the video because it was a bit long as it was, I thought. But I think that's one of those things like sort of touch and bending and all this sort of stuff that kind of, and slides as well. Little things that are maybe less talked about, but are kind of important to sounding like lyrical playing versus just playing without vibrato. So like oh, cheers to Zuzonka, that's very kind of you. So if you don't have any vibrato, it sounds like a string slide kind of a vibrato. What do you mean by that? Do you mean like that sort of thing? I think that's sort of a different thing, but that sort of thing. It's been fashionable for a while, I guess, that sort of thing. So little things to think about there. So let's go back to a little bit of looping whilst I wait for some more questions to come in. Andy Wood's done a decent whammy bar thing to make, not whammy bar, sorry, but like you can do a finger thing to make it sound like that. Jeff Beck is probably the king of the whammy bar for that kind of stuff. Yeah, this is an Aston mic. It's the Spirit. Jake's got a nice vibrato if you want to check his out for a beginner. Also, I think no vibrato at all can sound a little bit like beginnerish. What are you doing, Jake? What a pillock. Something else to bear in mind actually is that bending, depending on where you are on the neck, is quite different. Like up here, it's kind of a lot easier. Joel, it's not uploaded yet. I've got it ready to upload. Actually, I should just do it now, shouldn't I? I'll put it as a I'll add it as an attachment. Hey, Camille. Here we go. If I upload it as an attachment to the actual lesson. That should be ready to go. I'm on Patreon, I am. If you're interested in that, that's where my backing tracks and tabs go. I do use studio monitors, yes. I use cheap-ish JBL LSR 305s. That's okay, Lee. Thank you for stopping by. Pre-bends are a good thing to practice as well, for getting a sense if you've got the pitch of the thing. Oh dear. So yeah, that stuff. Any other questions? So, Jim actually has a podcast which is worth checking out. Dan, I find it relatively comfortable. I think part of the reason that I feel relatively comfortable for this is that I've been doing it for a while now, and I've been uploading so regularly that everyone's seen how I play guitar anyway, and seen all my kind of sloppy playing. So to be honest, this is more or less how I sound. So it's just, this is what it is. I think it would be scarier if you're a person who doesn't necessarily put out, loads of content. Maybe you do lots and lots of takes to get a perfect take. That's not really where I'm at anymore. I kind of stopped thinking that I needed to be perfect, because if someone sees me play live, this is how I play, for better or for worse, unfortunately. I'm not a perfect guitarist or anything, so I kind of learned to stop trying. Yeah, this is the Line 6 Helix. It's what I use for pretty much all of my live streams. Favorite cab speaker for what? For real life, like a real cab, or like a modeler? Let's try a different key for a bit. I might tune actually. I think another thing that comes along with string bending and all that stuff is that inevitably your guitar will probably take a bit of a beating on tuning. Any requests for anything? Just get an EVM12L. Don't know what that is. Right, let's try something. Oh, with an amp, I quite like the Mesa Boogie Black Shadow. I think that's what it's called. Quite a dark speaker. Seems to suit me. One, two, three. One, two. Go on then, Jason, go for it. Wait, I don't know that tune, Jake. Oh dear. What on earth is a Zune? Tips on using modelers for people who haven't used a real tube amp. Just do it. A lot of people might have a lot of different things to say about how a tube amp and a modeler are different. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just use your ears, listen to players you like, and then see what their advice might be. So we want talking body, alright? Let's try that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play it any sense. Try and just play melodies, Brady. So I'll talk you through it in a sec. So let me do it. Oh dear. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So Brady, Joel, I'd also check out maybe, what's his name? Well, people like Lee Rittner is cool. Check out who else? Charlie Parker stuff. Definitely check out Bill Evans. Check out Esborn Svensson Trio. Pat Metheny. Check out Pat Metheny. Those are just a few ideas. So Brady, when it comes to the improvisation stuff, try and just play melodies rather than thinking about what you're playing too much. Maybe think about what a saxophone player might play or a singer might sing. Maybe work on playing melodies that you've already heard. So songs that you can know to sing, try and figure out how to play them on guitar. If you want to ask any questions, I'm probably going to go for about another 5 minutes, so if you've got any questions, get them in. Yeah, Kevin, play the vocal melody or play anything that you hear. Play synth lines, play bass lines. Yeah, it was probably my voice. I probably spoke too loud and then you heard it through the headphone into the mic. In the jazz world, I guess people would call it transcribing. It's a bit of a grand term to put to it, but the idea is just to be able to play what you've heard. Have I done any more head rush patches since when? I've done a few. It's probably like 12 or something in the folder. I'll probably do some more this Thursday. Oh, here's a dog. Hello, Fenty. Coming up? Come on in, bud. Come on in. Are you very familiar with the Marshall JTM 45? I've had a blues breaker. The point with those amps is that they're very, very, very loud. No, Kevin, I've got my own sort of PA speakers that I'm thinking about. I might try and do a video with, just to see if I can come up with any sort of general tips or anything that might help me and people get along with a full range flat response speaker a bit better. Historically, I've not really used one. Good boy. Yes. Any other questions? Don't think of it as a mental block, Brady. Just think of it as trying to play melodies and do a little bit of playing melodies every day. So, you know, you might choose just a Coldplay song or an Ed Sheeran song. simple stuff is good for this because it makes you feel like you can do it. You don't have to be transcribing massive jazz solos. It makes sense to do it with any kind of music that you hear. I think it makes sense to not transcribe loads. Well, so think about transcribing instruments other than guitar, because you know you could learn 100 guitar solos and they might not be the most musical things. You know, you might learn a lot of fast stuff, a lot of tapping licks, but whether those are the most memorable solos, I'm not sure. Yeah, like Kevin says, use Disney tunes. It's all kind of good stuff. The more you do it, the kind of more natural it becomes, until hopefully the idea of playing a melody no longer seems like a kind of exercise, but it's just a thing that you do. And obviously melodies for things can exist in any key, so that's the thing you start to try to do. It's like, even if you're not in the key of a tune, you can still play the melody from that tune. What else have we got? We could try something like Mika. Cheers, Jake. Catch you soon. Mika, I would say try experimenting with having the same cab on the dual cab setup, but just changing the mics and having two mics. I've recently tried that and it sounded pretty good to my ears. So yeah, just playing melodies and things that you've heard before, I think, is the key really to melodic playing. It's not really a big secret, I guess. Oh, and I did speak to Kevin about this the other day, but so if you're practicing your scales just in this kind of way, that's likely what you're gonna end up doing. So there are other ways to practice your scales. So you could play arpeggios through scales. going to get Fenton in a sec. My hair is getting long. So's yours. So Bill, here's Fenton, and here's Fenton's son, who bites my face. Oh, here we go, look. You haven't missed Fenton. Fenton's son, Bill. He's called Nemo because he only has 3 legs and a fin. But he's pretty good. I don't think you can see him yet. He's going mad. Right, have we got any other questions? Yes, playing arpeggios through the scales, Brady, is super important, I think. Saxophone players do it a lot. Fenton's son is called Nemo. I did just say that though, didn't I? But you see he's only got 3 legs, but he does get around like a crazy thing now. And he likes to chew my nose. Ow. Nemo's always got energy, he's crazy. Pretty disgusting, Nemo. Ow. Is he on eBay yet? Yeah, you can find him on there. Get the joke. How are you doing, Bill? How do you play arpeggios for the scales? So, take the first note of the scale, skip 1, and then play the next one. So you play like 1, 3, and 5 of the scale, and then move that up 2, 4, and 6. Yeah, Kevin, you've got it exactly right. I've got him. There's no such thing as a newbie, it's fine. None of us know this stuff until we're told this stuff. So, like, we're in E flat major at the moment, so like Kevin just said, if you play the scale, that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees. So you go 1, skip 2, and then 3, then skip 4, and you get 5. And you do that same idea, so 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 4, etc. And then you could also add 7s to these chords. Exactly. So if you're unsure of what those would be, you might maybe write them down and stuff. But basically, if you imagine going 1, 3, 5, then 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, and just write them out like that to be sure, you shouldn't go too far wrong. So you'll get a major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. Any quick ideas about playing outside notes or sounds in overall blues progression via substitution or chromatic? Chromatic, it's always good to either go one above or one below the note that you're aiming for. Aside from that, I'm not a massive outside player, but one of the things that works is kind of shifting a semitone. But the main key to playing outside and it sounding half good is to play the thing with conviction, even if it sounds away, and then to resolve out of it in a way that works. So it's less important what you play in the moment, as long as you play it like you meant to play it, and then are able to kind of jump back out of it, if that makes sense. So, you know, I could play... Well, over this it wouldn't work. So you got to be the right context to play something outside as well, but if you've got like a funk... that kind of shifting a semitone one way or the other makes sense to... Let me just get a loop going. 2, 3, 4. So, come on. 1, 2, 3, 4. So little slips up a chromatic tone. So if you're playing in C minor, playing something quickly in C sharp minor works. That kind of thing. C melodic minor over like a C minor Dorian kind of thing has a sound which some people might call outside. To me it's not outside, you're just choosing a different scale, but... that sort of thing. I guess sequences that you move up, so like... that sort of thing makes sense as well, but again you've got to maintain that kind of... You could use like whole tone scales and stuff. Is the first fret always hard to fret? And what is the proper way to fret the guitar? I don't know. Maybe as a beginner, the first fret might be odd note groupings. Yeah, perfect idea. So over this sort of amp, pretty much anything is kind of valid. So I guess just experiment with it. So maybe I'll play outside for a chunk here and I'll try and make it sound half decent, but we're going to be trying to just imply C sharp minor over this vamp. See, it doesn't sound really that good to me if I stay there for too long. You've got to keep things moving, I think, for it to sound half decent. But I think maybe the key to it is always being ready to resolve things, like as you feel the tension building up. I guess that's what I'm doing there. So those are just my kind of thoughts on outside playing. However it is, I think you need to be careful where you apply it, really, more than anything else. You know, you don't want to be in the middle of a wedding gig and playing outside over everything, because probably don't forget to, maybe most people that are listening, outside does sound sort of bad, I guess would be a word for it, or like a mistake. I can sort of remember listening to Guthrie Govan when I was a younger kid and thinking a lot of that didn't sound very musical to me. I can still listen to a lot of Wayne Shorter now, and it's not necessarily a sound that I like when he's playing live. Do you know what I mean? Like there's sounds that I gravitate towards and there's sounds that I don't. But super outside kind of playing all the time, I think, can be quite off-putting to a general audience, in my opinion. So I wouldn't necessarily, it's not a massive part of what I would practice, but those are some of the strategies that I might use if I wanted to make those kinds of sounds, I guess. So shifting up a semitone or down a semitone, moving a whole kind of phrase. Or, you know, maybe picking another scale and sticking in it for a bit, like a C melodic minor, or, you know, just imposing. Just crazy chords over stuff. Hey Brady, I couldn't say I am a Derek Trucks fan, purely because I've not really listened to much of him. What I've heard I like, but I've not really heard much. Is that fair to say? What I have heard I really like, and his slide playing is very in tune, which is a good thing. And seems to play very, very melodically from what I know of him. But I couldn't honestly say I'm a fan because I've not really listened to much of it. I think I've learnt one or two Tedeschi Trucks songs that I had to do as part of like a funk jam type thing, and those were cool. Is it Midnight in Harlem? I quite like the sound of. That was one. I think he plays on that. I'm gonna have to go now, I think, and so thank you everyone for joining me. Hopefully there was something vaguely useful in this chat. Yeah, so I couldn't say I'm a fan of his just because I've not listened to enough, so it would be a bit unfair for me to say, oh yeah, I'm a massive Derek Trucks fan, because I honestly haven't listened to too much. What kind of gigs do I play most? Pub gigs, I guess. At the moment, obviously no gigs, but pub gigs, weddings, and that sort of stuff. That's all right, Lee. Thank you for coming and hanging out. Yeah, Jason, I think there's room for both. I think there's a kind of a lot in the jazz world of stuff where it's not necessarily clear who you're playing for. I think that maybe is important to remember that there was perhaps a song behind this thing. It's cool to push the envelope. particularly if you're in the jazz world, but I think for the general audience, it's good to know whereabouts in the song you were. Do you know what I mean? If it doesn't sound anything like the original tune, I think that's the point where you probably start to alienate some people who can't necessarily follow along. And it doesn't really matter how many altered chords and stuff you're playing if no one recognises it. Hey Des, I'm just about to go. But those are my thoughts on that stuff. If you've got any suggestions for stuff that you want me to do tomorrow, I can take a look at them. Yeah, thank you for hanging out, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.